Sanjak Community College, English 1302 and 1301, and quite possibly Houston Community College, English 1301 and 1302. This video is going to identify our upcoming assignments for this week. For the most part, the assignment is the same depending on which college you are at. Maybe the actual text that you're analyzing will be different, but the actual writing process and the assignment requirements and instructions are quite possibly the same. So depending on which school you're at, you are going to adhere to the information that is prevalent for your particular college. Okay. We're going to start by revamping what happened last week during week 6. You should have watched the Nearpod lecture and been introduced to how to write a literary analysis essay, and then given the SWA number 4 at the end of that Nearpod after reading Desiree's Baby and Eveline by James Joyce, right? And so then the actual assignment was to require you to write 500 to 750 word literary analysis essay. Now, by comparison to our first essay, this is going to be a very short essay. And I want you to do two things with these short writing assignments. My objective is to look at your body paragraph and formulating a cohesive body paragraph. If you refer back to our previous lectures, your body paragraph should have somewhat of a formulaic structure to it as we are starting off with the foundational course of English 1301 or 1302. I want to really focus on building your strength in writing a cohesive paragraph. And so I created this short writing assignment so that I could focus in on that one particular paragraph while still having you analyze a complete work. Okay. For your SWA, because the word count is only 500 words, you should essentially follow the outline that's indicated in this essay assignment. It requires you to have an intro where your thesis is the very last sentence of your introductory paragraph. I specifically want your thesis to be the last sentence of your introductory paragraph, right? You are then going to take that thesis and then build one cohesive, fluent body paragraph that supports that thesis. And then you're going to write an introduction that sort of functions as a funnel or a mirror to your intro, and you're going to tie up your paper, right? So this essay is going to have 3 parts that will be focused on according to the rubric. You will be graded on your introduction. You will be graded on that one body paragraph, and then you will be graded on the conclusion, right? As well as your ability to use in-text citations, MLA formatting, and being able to align your works cited page, okay? The 2 short stories that you'll be working on in the beginning are Desiree's Baby and Eveline by James Joyce. You are to read both of those stories and you are to form an interpretation. Now I want you to listen very closely to this next part so as there is no mistake to what you are to include in this paper. The first thing is, do not use any sources other than the short story that you are using to write about. I do not want you looking up another interpretation of this story or adding in anyone else's opinions about the story. This is going to be your interpretation, and it needs to be supported with evidence from the story. Okay? So that is the first thing. Please do not write using everyday language as though we are discussing this paper nonchalantly, which means I do not want you to use first person point of view nor second person point of view, right? First person is I, me, my, us, we. Second person is you. You should do this. You can see this. I do not want that used in this paper. This paper should be third person academic tone and vocabulary, which means I want you to use academic verbs, academic literary analysis. I am giving you several examples of what that literary analysis looks like. In your module, you will have a document entitled How to Quote in an Essay. You will have a document titled How to Write a Literary Analysis. You will have the short stories, and you will have any other MLA formatting documents to help you really pull this essay together, right? Another issue that I saw in the first essay that I want to try and fix with this second assignment. Some of you are writing using single spaces. Your MLA header is not done properly. Those things need to be fixed within this next essay. All of your essays should be MLA formatted, which means it is double spaced. It has a title. You have indented paragraphs, which means I should be able to tell where your paragraphs start and where they stop. Right? I should also be able, there should be some line of demarcation as far as when you're switching from one paragraph to the next. If you look at this sample essay here, you can tell that each paragraph is indented and the essay is double spaced. You see the header here. There's a title here. There's a last name here with a page number here. This is an example for you to look at to see what type of document you should produce. Your document should look exactly like this one as far as the format is concerned. Please make sure to take care of that with this next essay. Right? All right, so having said that, we're going to jump right into looking at a sample literary analysis after discussing what literary analysis actually is. Again, this information is all located, these handouts are all located in your week 7 module. All right. So this document I found that is very helpful because it goes through what you can expect from literary analysis. It gives you 3 very general things that your essay must cover, right? Your essay must cover the topic you're writing about, which means you have to have an interpretation of the short story that you've read, which means it may require that you read this short story several times in order to figure out what your interpretation of the short story is. You are trying to form an opinion. Maybe you've read this and you believe that this character in this story exudes a certain confidence that exposes a particular theme in this essay. Then that's going to be your interpretation, right? Your interpretation is not going to be written in first person, which means I think, I feel, I believe, because your interpretation is going to be backed by evidence. And when you back that interpretation up by reasonable evidence, I want you to write in such a way that you are stating your opinions as educated opinions that are supported by evidence. For that reason, I want you to use a third person academic tone, right? I want you to be careful about the type of analysis verbs that you use and the type of phrases that you use when you are discussing the elements that your essay is focused on. This document is 10 pages and every single word in this document is important. You have to read through this document in order to get a good understanding of how to write a literary analysis essay, particularly with the thesis statement, right? Your thesis statement is what is going to give your paper its backbone. If you do not have a thesis statement, there's very little chance of receiving a reasonably high grade on this essay. Your thesis must be flawless. It must be debatable. You must have a thesis that is debatable. You must identify at least one literary element, right? If you are examining characters, then that is a literary element here, as in this example. The fate of the main characters in Antigone illustrates the danger of excessive pride, right? Here is the theme: excessive pride. This writer believes that excessive pride, the theme of excessive pride, is best illustrated through the fate of the main characters. So this student is analyzing characterization, right? So that is their one literary element that they're going to focus on. In this particular example, this student is focusing on poetic form of the ballad, right? To treat the subject of racial intolerance, which is the theme. And so both of those things are located there, right? You will see that there is no use of I or you in this sentence. The thesis statement reaffirms the title of the piece. It also can mention the writer's name. Depends on how you put your introductory paragraph together. If we look at the last example, this one will focus on imagery. And imagery reveals the ambiguity of humans' relationship with nature. This is the student's theme or interpretation of the poem, right? So your essay must, one, identify a theme that is present in your work that you've chosen. You have two choices, either Eveline or Desiree's Baby by Kate Chopin for our first SWA. So you have two choices there, either Eveline or Desiree's Baby, right? And then you have a myriad of choices for which literary element you're going to focus on. Do you have to focus on every character if you choose characterization? No, you could focus only on one. This interpretation is literally left up to you, right? The introduction of your essay should capture the interest. Remember, this is a very short paper. So your introduction has to get to the point, and it has to be something that is interesting and inviting and something that leads up to your interpretation. There are 3 examples that are listed here. Either one of these examples is effective. Okay? Take a look at them. This one is on character. The second one is on symbols. If you wanted to write about the symbols of the story or one particular symbol. And then this one is setting. And we're going to kind of take this example and look at a sample essay that is fully developed according to sample C. There's a few variations in this, but it is essentially walking you through what the essay looks like, right? So let's say we're going to take sample C. This is what this sample looks like from a student who adapted this introductory paragraph, right? You'll see the intro is not too long. It doesn't go about trying to summarize what's happened in the short story. That is another point of contention that I want to make in this video. Please do not summarize this short story. You are to interpret how one particular literary element functions to reveal the theme, a theme in this short story. You are not simply to write a summary of the short story. So there's no need to tell me what happens first, second, third, or last in this story. Okay? This sample here focuses on the short story. Notice that the very first sentence introduces the author and the title. So very early off, you alert the grader to the title of your piece, the genre, it is a short story or a poem or a novel. In your case, it happens to be a short story. And you're going to put the title. Using MLA formatting, A and P is put in quotations because it is the title of the story. And so short stories and poems are capitalized in the title as well as put in quotations. Okay. So this student starts off by using an concrete example from the story. And he introduces that as a way to pull the reader into this entrance, right? He introduces the setting of the store and talks about Sammy leaving behind his job, but not only his job, but a rigid state of mind associated with the store or the setting. Remember, we're focused on setting, so this student's intro is geared towards setting. He goes in and continues to identify why this setting is crucial to the understanding of Sammy's decision to quit his job. The next sentence builds upon that idea. And then finally, that leads to the thesis statement, which becomes the last sentence of this intro, right? Updike's restrictive setting plays the antagonist of the story and exposes Sammy's sudden rejection of conformity, right? So here's the theme. The theme of this story is the rejection of conformity. And the element that the student will focus on is setting. Okay. After this intro, this is where we're really going to focus in on for this essay. We're going to look at building a body paragraph that is organized, that is fluent, and that does exactly what you are required to do, right? The body portion of your essay then has to do two things. It must relate the details of the paragraph to your thesis, and it must tie the details of the paragraph together, which means all the evidence that you use has to be related and it has to support your thesis, right? When you're writing your body paragraph, you should have your thesis in mind, right? This student's job is to show how the setting is restrictive, how the setting functions as an antagonist in the story, and how the setting exposes Sammy's rejection, sudden rejection of conformity, right? Every paragraph, whether you're writing a literary analysis or a rhetorical analysis from our last class, every paragraph should start off with a topic sentence. A topic sentence needs to make a claim that supports your thesis. That is the function of it, right? A topic sentence is not used to just make a factual statement about the story, right? This one is Sammy's descriptions of the AMP. This is the setting. Present a setting that is ugly, monotonous, and rigidly regulated. This particular topic sentence goes back to support this portion of the thesis statement. The setting is restrictive and it plays the antagonist, right? After you've put your topic sentence, you're going to then go in and start to explain and give evidence that supports your topic sentence. You have to explain, you have to give evidence, right? And you're going to do that throughout this paragraph, okay? For this paragraph, we have a topic sentence. The second sentence is then an explanation. The chain store is a common fixture in modern society. So many can identify with the uniformity Sammy describes, all right? This idea explains how the setting is restrictive. How the setting represents his rejection of conformity, right? Talks about uniformity, right? After this explanation, it's brief. Your explanation can be as long as you need it to be. This one, for this short 500 word essay, is very brief. If you were writing a longer essay, maybe your explanation would be have a bit more depth. But for a short essay, this explanation does what it's supposed to do. It introduces the setting and it explains how the setting is ugly, monotonous, rigidly regulated, right? Now you are to back up that explanation with evidence from the text. Here is the student's first piece of evidence that's here. And it says, the fluorescent light is blandly cool as the checkerboard green and cream rubber tile floor. This is an exact quote from the text, right? You want to include this quote, right? Because it provides evidence to it being ugly, monotonous, rigidly regulated, right? He goes on, the usual traffic in the store moves in one direction except for the swim-suited girls who move against it. And everything is neatly organized and categorized in tidy aisles, right? So here's this evidence, right? And now here's a further explanation of why that's important. The dehumanizing routine of this environment is suggested by Sammy's offhand references to the typical shoppers as sheep, house slaves, pigs, right? This is further evidence that is used to identify the setting, because now it's describing the people within the setting, right? All right, here the student is then going to explain the importance of that evidence. Updike suggests that these regular customers seem to walk through the store in a stupor. As Sammy indicates, not even dynamite could move them out of their routine. His depiction of the setting in this manner serves as a foe for Sammy. Here we get to supporting the thesis, because the thesis says the setting functions as the antagonist. So here I'm going to explain how this evidence relates back and supports the thesis, right? Updike's depiction of the setting in this manner serves as a foe for Sammy because I'm explaining. It hints at an underlying tension that suggests Sammy's dissatisfaction with his work environment. This dissatisfaction is caused by the cloistered nature of the setting, from the grocery store to the small town with only a bank and a few real estate offices. However, Sammy's ultimate rejection is not that of the store, but in the broader sense that he refuses to fall victim to the same notion of conformity that exists for his parents, Lingale, and even Stokesy. So here we're going further and tying it back to his rejection of conformity, his rejection of the setting, his rejection of conformity. When he quits his job and leaves the supermarket, what he really rejects is this notion of conformity that society forces on individuals, right? So this paragraph is one where it is strong because it's developed through the use of quotations and explanations and summary and details that support a particular claim that is made in the topic sentence. Okay? This topic sentence is functional because this topic sentence then supports the thesis. Okay? And so if you work backwards in this essay, an essay that is done well should be able to move forward and it should be able to move backward. Right? So when you're looking at building the body paragraph that I want you to focus on, I want you to focus on that order. Your order should be T, right? TEE. Topic sentence, evidence, explanation. Now, when you get to the T of your essay, your body paragraph can introduce as much evidence as you want, right? So you would start with a topic sentence. You would produce one piece of evidence explaining. If you so choose to produce another piece of evidence that is well within your right to do so. You just want to choose a transition, and you should only be introducing evidence that supports this topic sentence. If you wanted to make another claim that supports the thesis, that is when you are going to move to a second body paragraph, right? If, for instance, I had another claim that I wanted to make about the setting, and I wanted to show how the setting does some other effect on, or has some other effect on Sammy's decision to quit, then I would simply build another paragraph and start this process all over again, this T process. Another topic sentence that supports the thesis, more evidence, more explanation, and I would include a second paragraph, right? You only switch paragraphs when your claim or your topic sentence also switches, okay? So you can build several different claims that support the thesis, and then each of those particular claims need to be addressed in their own paragraph, okay? As long as you are addressing the same claim, then you will have all of this information presented into one fluent, coherent paragraph. When you get down to the conclusion then for this essay, your concluding paragraph serves as sort of a funnel to your introductory paragraph. The conclusion, the first thing you want to do in it is restate your thesis. The second thing you want to do is then start to focus on the broader topic or theme that you introduced in the thesis, right? So this thesis talks about the setting, but then it also introduces the theme of conformity. So we want to provide a funnel then. So we're going to start here by restating the thesis. Right? You're going to use different words. You will not use the same sentence. If you go back and look at the thesis that's here, it says Updike's restrictive setting plays the antagonist of the story and exposes Sammy's sudden rejection of conformity. Right? Let's see how that's restated. Although Sammy fears society and even his parents' reaction to his sudden rejection of the supermarket society and all it represents, he understands that he must make his own way in the world, standing up for what he believes. Right? Sammy considers his bleak future and feels how hard the world was going to be to him hereafter. With this, Updike seems to suggest that Sammy realizes that acts of nonconformity often go unnoticed. So here the student transitions and begins to discuss the overall broader theme or topic that the author introduces. You'll notice that the introduction focuses on what the author seems to suggest about this theme, what the author reveals about the theme through the character's actions and what he does in the story. Okay? So this is essentially your essay in a nutshell, right? The works cited page will be then the last page. The works cited page should only have one citation, and that is the short story that you are working with or the poem that you're working with, because that is all you are asked to use to analyze this short story, right? This citation here, you can simply copy and paste this particular citation to your works cited page. The only thing you will be changing is the author's name, the title, because your short stories come from this book, Composition in Literature. You just need to find the page numbers where your short story occurs, and then you need to put your writer's last name and your title. That is what you will be changing in the works cited page, right? While I have you in this essay, I want to also go and talk about the use of in-text citations, or essentially how to quote in an essay. You can use full sentences when you're quoting in an essay, or you can use what is formally or commonly referred to as embedded quotations. In this document, which is also located in your module, there are several examples that show you how to use in-text citations. When you're providing evidence from your story, you're going to do it one of these 3 or 4 ways, right? You can use a full sentence. If you're going to use a full sentence, you introduce that full sentence with an introductory quote and then a colon, right? You will introduce it with something like this. The setting emphasizes despair. You will put a colon, and then you would put the quotation directly as it is presented in the story. When you do it that way, you're going to go back and you're going to put the writer's last name from your citation. Okay? If your writer is Chopin, then you'll put Chopin. If your writer is Joyce, then you will use Joyce. And you're going to put the page number that you found this particular quote on. Okay? Now, you can do this same thing using a different way. You can go and introduce the quote with the writer's name already stated. Joyce ends the text on an ironic tone. When you introduce the writer's name in your quotation, then you don't need to put it in the in-text citation. All you will need then is the page number, right? So these are 2 different examples of how to do this. One where the writer's name is not mentioned, then you would put the writer's name and the quote. Notice in this in-text citation, there is no other punctuation, no commas, no dashes, because we only have 1 page. Let's say that you had page 1 and 2 for this quote. Then you would put dash 1 through 2, right? If that were the case. All right. A second way to begin your quote is to begin with your own words, then complete with portions instead of using a full sentence, right? If you're doing poetry, you can use the hash mark to introduce where your line breaks are. This note is only for poetry, so if you're not writing over poetry, you can skip this particular note, but then go down to this example. The speaker acknowledges that it is usually best to roll them in the candy, right? This person is taking part of this quote and mixing it with their own words. Then they're going to use the in-text citation because they didn't introduce the writer's name, so they will put the writer's name in the citation plus the page number or line number. This one does the same thing. However, there should be a dash here. Okay. Again, this one is more for poetry. So if you're not doing poetry, you could probably skip over number 2. Number 3 then is for everyone. You can use an introductory phrase naming the source followed by a comma to quote a critic or an author or a researcher. Okay? According to the narrator, a few people were gathered about the stalls which were still open. Right? You can do this way. You can also put in Joyce's words, comma, in Stafford's view, comma. So using an introductory phrase, this is how you would do that. You can use a descriptive verb, right? And I gave you a list of different verbs to use instead of saying says, the story says, the quote says. You don't want to do that. You want to do it in a more academic way by using one of these examples. Joyce states, Joyce concludes, Joyce comments, Joyce writes, Joyce adds, Stafford maintains, right? If you're going to use the word that or as after you put this, Stafford adds that, then you're not going to have a comma here, okay? So you will only have a comma here when you just use the name plus the verb. If you want to add that or as after your verb, Stafford adds that, right? Stafford observes as, right? So you will not add a comma after the inclusion of that or as, right? Here's an example of how that's done. Joyce points out that So when you use points out and you use that, there's no comma here. You just simply explain what he points out. Joyce points out that the houses on the street seem conscious of decent lives within them, and gazed at one another with brown, imperturbable faces. And then, because the writer's name is introduced here, you don't need to introduce it here, but you simply put the page number, right? Another thing with your in-text citations, notice that you do not put punctuation here at the end of the quote. The punctuation goes at the end of the citation always, right? You're going to put the citation here and the page number, and then the punctuation. It's done here as well, and here as well, right? This is how you use in-text citations to include evidence in your literary analysis essay. Okay. Your literary analysis essay, check the due date. I believe the first SWA number 4 is due October 13th before 11:59 p.m. Be sure to use this sample as you are writing yours. Be sure to adhere to MLA formatting, putting a correct title, making sure it's double spaced. Do not use I, me, my, we, or us in your essay. Make sure it is at least 500 words. You can tell the word count down at the bottom. Make sure that the very last page of your essay is a citation. You can copy and paste this citation and simply change the name, the story, and the page numbers. And then you are going to submit your essay October 13th before 11:59 p.m. to turn it in. Please make sure that you are not using AI to construct this essay. If your essay indicates AI, please consult the syllabus as to the repercussions for doing that. If you are using Grammarly, you may use Grammarly to correct your sentence structure and your use of punctuation and those things. You may not use Grammarly to write your paper. If you are asking Grammarly to write a literary analysis of Eveline or Desiree's Baby, that is considered plagiarism. That will result in an automatic F in this course. Okay? Please make sure that your interpretation is your own. For this week as well, once you submit that paper on the 13th, you will then start to work on your SWA number 5, which is essentially the same assignment as SWA number 4. You're doing the same exact thing. You're writing another short literary analysis, except this time you are writing over the second 2 short stories that we are dealing with. Everyday Use by Alice Walker or Heels Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway. The short story that you choose is of course up to you, but you must write about one of these short stories, and you're doing the exact same thing. The parameters are the same, 500 to 750 words, third person academic tone and vocabulary, MLA format, type, Times New Roman font, 12-point font, double space, must have a creative title, right? For those of you who are at HCC, you will have your essay submitted to Upswing. For those of you who are at Sanjak and using Blackboard, there is no thing for you to submit your essay to, but I would tell you to visit the tutoring center and have someone look over your essay before you submit it. They can help you with your organization, and they can also just give you feedback on your product. Okay? There is no formal submission of your rough draft. You simply need to make sure that you actually have a rough draft and that you are keeping up with the due date, because there will not be any late papers accepted after the due date of October 13th for SW4. and October 20th for SW5. Okay. If you have any questions, you can email me as usual. Right? Thank you.